Welcome to All About the Girls. I'm your host, Jenny Craig Brown, here with a podcast that's all about empowering stories, laughter, and inspiration. Each episode, we dive into the lives of incredible women who share their journeys, passions, and unique qualities that make them shine. This podcast is your year-round pass to connect with the inspiring stories that make our community and our world a better place. So grab your coffee or your wine, settle in, and let's celebrate strength, spirit, and stories of amazing women. Welcome, everybody, to All About the Girls, the podcast. Joining me this month for this beautiful new year is Dr. Janet Seabrook, CEO of Community Health Health Centers, and I also believe City of Gary Health Commissioner, correct?
I am.
Well, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me here today. I am so excited about the invitation and just to be here to talk with you and share whatever information and knowledge that I have for people who are listening to the podcast.
Fantastic. Well, you definitely have tons of information that I am excited to dive into. And, you know, if you know our podcast well, I think some will see automatically that I have switched up the questions a little bit for the new year. But usually, and in this case as well, we want to get to know you a little bit better. So tell me a little bit about yourself and kind of your story in a nutshell.
Okay, so I'll try to condense it as much as I can. I am Dr. Janet Seabrook. I was born in Charleston, South Carolina, believe it or not.
Yes.
My family moved to Gary when I was a toddler.
Okay.
And I was educated in the Gary school system. I graduated from Gary Roosevelt, went on to Tuskegee University, which is in Tuskegee, Alabama, one of the historically black universities and colleges. And then I went on to Meharry Medical College in Nashville, Tennessee, another HBCU.
Yes, great.
And completed my family medicine residency in Gary at Methodist Hospital's North Lake campus.
Okay, shout out to Methodist.
Yes, and I became a family medicine resident at that time. And during that time, the mayor of Gary actually appointed me to the Board of Health. And during that time, we received notification, the city did, that the state of Indiana was going to be giving funding opportunities to cities that wanted to start community health centers. And so I helped to write the grant. We received funding, and by this time I was working at a FQHC in Chicago. I promptly left to do the work. The work to start Community Health Net. We started out in a trailer in Glen Park by Lew Wallace High School.
Okay.
And eventually were able to get funding from the state to build our largest site at 1021 West 5th Avenue in Gary, 30,000 square foot state-of-the-art facility. And we've been there since 2001, but actually became a federally funded health center in 2006 and have just been making moves to provide health services across Northwest Indiana. We currently have 9 locations, and 4 of them are in schools, high schools throughout Northwest Indiana.
How incredible. I don't think many know that depth, that size that you guys are now. That's really incredible. Fantastic job.
I just want to say, I think the reason why people don't realize the depth and size because there's some confusion, I guess, because of the name. Community Health Net.
Sure.
And there is a network out of Indianapolis, so I think sometimes there's that confusion that we're affiliated with and we're not.
Okay.
They are a big, huge corporate hospital versus we are a federally qualified health center here in Northwest Indiana. So it's totally independent, but I think sometimes when they hear Health Net, they want to put work on the end, and then that kind of ties us in with the Indianapolis.
I get it. I bet you're absolutely right. And for those that don't know, and this is diving a bit into the specifics, but FQHC, I've learned, in the nature of what we do every day, we work with North Shore Health Centers, which is a similar, or I don't know if they're similar at all, but they're also an FQHC. For those that don't know, and candidly, I only know a little, tell us what that means.
So federally qualified health centers receive funding from the federal government to provide health services and specialty care in some instances to communities that are underserved. And so we are in the same family of health centers in Northwest Indiana that are considered federally qualified health centers, and there are quite a few now. But initially, when we started, we were the only one in Gary.
I bet.
Yeah.
Okay, well done, kind of paving that path, because I think what I have learned the most about FQHCs is that that care for those that wouldn't be able to afford it otherwise, and that's huge, and it's a big difference for people.
It really is, and you would be surprised how many people go without certain things like dental care or health care because of they aren't able to afford it, and it really digs into their budget. But one good thing about FQHCs is we're able to help find affordable insurance options for many of the patients, so they come in as uninsured and many times leave out with some type of health coverage.
That's incredible. And what motivated you to pursue this career path or this passion? How did that come about?
I've always wanted to be a doctor.
Okay.
Since kindergarten.
Okay.
And I tell this story a lot. I stood up in front of my kindergarten class when we were, you had to do the stand
what
up.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
And I said, I want to be a doctor. Well, the boys thought that was hilarious because at that time, and I'm telling my age now.
But girls are nurses and boys are doctors.
Exactly. And I said, when I asked my teacher, I said, well, which one wears the thing around his neck? I couldn't pronounce it. And she said, stethoscope. I said, yeah, who wears that? She said, the doctor. And I said, that's the one I want to be.
That's me. Thank you very much.
And so, and she was my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Springer, she just enveloped me. She took me, she held my hands, and she looked me in my eyes and said, Janet, you can be anything you want to be. And from that time on, from my residency program graduation, she was there. Any ribbon cutting up until she couldn't travel anymore, she was there in the audience. Wow. If I looked out, she was there. And so, her family and her, I'm getting a little emotional, they were just huge supporters. And so when I went to her memorial service, one of her daughters, I came over and introduced myself, and she said, you don't need to introduce yourself to us, Dr. Seabrook. You were a princess in our house. You could do no wrong.
I've been competing with you. That is
right. Here she is. Finally, we get to see who she is, who this person is. And my mother was so obsessed with.
Oh, I love that so much. What a great story.
Yeah. Her memorial was a few years, like right before the pandemic, but she lived well into her 90s. She had a good life.
And supported you all along the way. That's really incredible. Good. And so if you look back at what you've created here, it's pretty incredible. How do you define success for yourself if you look at, career path, personal life? Is that it? Is that 9 locations it? What is, how do you define success for you, personal and professional both?
For me, it's making sure that people have the care that they need. I don't look at it as, what's behind my name, alphabets or anything like that, degrees, diplomas, those things don't affect me. It's how can I help best? Where can I fit in to help make sure people are getting their needs met, whatever it may be, because a lot of people believe that, medicine is just that, and it's not. When people come in for care, there's a reason why they've been neglecting their health. Sometimes it might be a social determinant. Maybe they're homeless. Maybe they are barely making their payments on their car or their house. And so maybe they're food insecure. So there are so many other things that are wrapped into neglecting your medical care. If you have bills to pay to keep the lights on and things like that, you have to make those choices. And
those things get pushed.
Right, those things get pushed back. So I think that people need to understand that there are so many other things that are wrapped around medical care that sometimes prevent people from being able to take better care of themselves. And right now, since the pandemic, we've really discovered a lot of behavioral health and mental health needs that patients have, and we want to try to address those. And so I think that there's still a lot of work out there to do. So I'm not ready to, take any, rewards or awards or accolades, because there are so many things. There's so much to do.
Well said. So you touched on it through your college career and such. if I ask, how would you answer the question, how did you get here today? What does that mean to you, and how would you answer that? Because I know it's very big.
It is very big. I think that it's a combination of things. I was on the Board of Health as a resident, and then because I did not really have the money to pay for medical school, I had to look for scholarships. And the federal government has scholarships that will pay for students to go to medical school, but you have to serve in an underserved area once you graduate and finish residency.
Okay.
And so that's what I did. But because part of what I did was a little selfish because I had to drive over to Chicago because that was the nearest. There were no FQHCs in Indiana. Yeah. At least not in the northern half.
Right.
And so I was assigned to an FQHC in Chicago.
Okay.
And continued to work on the grant and be on the Board of Health. And I was like, we have to have something in Gary because this driving to Chicago is for the birds. So it was a little bit of selfishness.
I think maybe the premise sounds a little selfish, but at the end of the day, you're still serving your direct community where you're at. And I think that's even better than anywhere else. So the drive, yes, much easier, but also you get to serve your community. And that's amazing.
And this was the other part. There were people from Gary driving over to Illinois, to various FQHCs in Illinois because there was not one in Northwest Indiana.
Yeah,
and so I saw a patient that I had seen in residency clinic. And she was now seeing me at the clinic in Chicago. And I'm like, this is some nonsense.
Yes. There's such a need here. There's such a need here. Yeah.
So
you killed it.
I promptly gave up 8094.
Okay. Oh, amen. No one wants it.
I said, you know what? And so the National Health Service Corps, that is the federal government's arm that pays for the scholarships. And so my contact in Chicago said, well, Dr. Seabrook, if you decide to leave where you are to go to help start an FQHC, we're going to have to stop your count now, your 2-year count, and start it back over again. And I said, I don't care. As long as I don't have to start paying anything back right now, if you'll give me the grace period to at least stand up the health center. And so when we found the trailer, I said, guess what? Slap the sign there. We're doing it. Yeah, we're state funded. We're a federally qualified health center. We're doing this right here, right now. So,
well done. That's got to feel really good. Yes, that's really incredible. But I know, it sounds great now. If you look back at those, I'm certain there were some roller coasters and some hills and some obstacles. What are some of those big obstacles that you faced through that time, through your whole career?
Let me just share that I am married.
Okay,
I have 2 children. My husband is also a physician. He finished the residency program before I did.
Okay.
So he was a couple of years in front of me with the residency program. So he was an attending physician. We got married my last year of residency. And we had a child in 1998, and I incorporated the health. My child was born in August. The health center was incorporated in June.
Oh, my goodness.
And
when did you even sleep?
So that's how I know the age of the health center, because it matches my daughter's age. I can never forget that.
Holy cow. So that was probably a huge obstacle. And what a lovely, wonderful obstacle is, your daughter. But also so much balance needed there, because you've really got to give, your life to your daughter, your growing family, but you're also trying to do the same for this community that you've loved and are trying to serve. That's tough.
It was very tough, but when you are doing something that you have passion for and that you enjoy, it didn't feel like work.
You just made it happen.
We just made it happen. My mother still would tease me about putting my daughter in school at 17 months old or something like that. She's like, that is so mean. I say, do you want to babysit?
I'm not sure what else you would like me to do here, friend.
But it paid off. She graduated from college in 3 years, and she's now a resident physician in St. Joe Ascension Hospital in Chicago.
Really?
Yes.
Look at you guys. You are just a family of smarty pants just making it work. This is incredible.
It paid off. And I have a son, and he is in his second year at Indiana University School of Medicine down in Bloomington. So, just, had to keep focused. Sometimes I had, one in the stroller and one on the hip, and like we might be going to the hospital to deliver a baby today. You guys are going to sit right here at the nursing station, and I'll be back.
And not disrupt anyone, please. Thank you. That's really good, though. I'm really impressed by that. And through that time as those youngins, because that was earlier on,
yes.
And what's the age difference between the two?
Their daughter's 26 and son is 23.
Okay, so we've got a couple years between. So by the time you had two, you're 3 years into this journey, or at least after incorporation. How, as they got older, did you manage to balance that work life with that personal life and your passions and your hobbies? I don't know if you even get to have any at that point. Tell me what that looked like through the years.
It was hectic, but it was, I guess sometimes you're just too naive to know any better.
It's almost like looking outside looking in later when you're like, yeah, that was crazy time, but you made it work.
Because I waited until my son turned 3, and then I decided that I needed an MBA after I started the health center. So
what?
I went to get my MBA at Purdue University, Northwest.
Wow.
And finished that up. And like I said, one in one hand, one in the other, getting my MBA degree.
Wow.
And I think it helped a lot. I made a lot of contacts, and in doing that MBA program for executives, it gave me some perspective as to the work that I was doing on the business side for the health center.
Okay.
So it was of great benefit, I believe.
You got through it, and it helped you a lot.
And so we would all sit at the table doing our homework together.
Oh. This is really incredible. It's cool.
I had a village. I had family and friends that really helped me with my children. I didn't do it all because we did soccer, we had piano, we had drum practice, we had everything. Yeah. I wanted them to have the childhood that their friends were having. Their friends were, going out and having sleepovers, and so we did the sleepovers. We had the themed birthday parties at the skating rinks and stuff like that. Cool. Now, I also probably should share that at that time I wasn't big on sleep. Now I tell my patients to get a lot of sleep, but
what I'm learning in my 40s is I did not sleep at all in my 20s. I feel like I was the girl infamous for not sleeping. I don't need sleep. It's fine. I'm always on. I'm always hyper. No, not at 41. It's not. And you're right. It really is very important. I'm glad you tell everyone that. Listen, audience.
No, sleep hygiene is very important. If not, you'll be wearing, suitcases.
Yes. Suitcases under your eyes. That's well said, yes. I've never heard that term. I always hear the bags. The suitcases. It's even more serious. You guys got to pay attention. Do not get the suitcases. That's fantastic. And through all of these, this tough work that you guys are all kind of digging into and getting through and making work and making these strides, was there ever a sense of maybe burnout on one hand or some doubt? Like, was there ever a point where you're saying, what am I doing? Is this going to actually work? Can I do this? Is it too much?
Actually, to be honest, at that time, no. But I think the pandemic did a lot to not only me, but my husband and the staff at, my health center. We're experiencing a lot of that, and people just wanted to take breaks, which, I fully understand that. But in answer to your question at that time, no, we were just going we were still taking family vacations. We were visiting, friends. We had company over, so a lot of backyard time.
Still doing the whole thing, not just closing yourselves off and saying, we got to get through this, which I think, and probably from a doctor perspective, is so important because you need that full circle. You can't just have work as you try to build this. You can't just have work and school as you try to build this.
Right.
You really do need friends and family and vacation and off time and those things that make your life seem sort of, air quotes, regular or like everyone else's when your performance levels are so much higher than the average.
No.
And you need the time away, and you need the family and the village that's going to help you make it happen. So I think that the fact that you kept all that in there is really important. And a lot of people, it's kind of like people say in marketing, it's the first thing cut from budget.
Right.
I think in life, fun or quality time or vacation time or relaxing time or time for you are the things that get cut first. But it sounds like you've sort of made sure that stayed around for your own sanity.
Yeah, we had to. And I didn't share this with you, but at that time, my husband worked in the emergency room. He did a couple of emergency room shifts weekly. Sometimes I would be going into do my urgent care shift, and he would be going home, and we'd flash our lights at each other on Grant Street. Hi, honey.
Hi, bye. See you sometime.
But I had to give that up. After about 10 years, I had to give up covering the emergency room, and he picked up, my extra shifts because one of us had to be at home, be that weekend parent. The alternating thing just wasn't working for me. I wanted to give as much of my time that I had available to my children when I wasn't studying or working, to build Community Health Net. And you asked about stress earlier, and I think that I am experiencing more stress now than I did when my children were younger, and that's because they were there. I could see them, or I knew who they were with.
Okay.
Now they're not there, and I'm like,
and out of the house,
what are you doing? Who are you with? Who are you talking to? And they're like, Mom.
I'm grown. I swear I'm going to be fine.
It's more stressful for me now.
Okay.
And it's not that I'm trying to be that, controlling, I need to know what. It's just, once I know where they are and they're okay, then I'm okay for the rest of the day. But it's hard when, just text me and say, good morning, hi, Mom, I'm good. Then I'm good.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you're off to the races because everything's calm and settled, and you kind of have that peace about you.
Exactly.
Where you can enter the day.
Exactly.
Well said. And whether it be kids and they're growing, or it's those ER shifts, or anything that you're going through those times, you mentioned sleep is very important.
Yes.
Do you have other ways that you handle tough times? Are you a meditator? Are you more of, I just need to close everybody off? Or is it more, that's vacation time or that's friend time? How do you deal with tough times?
So I have, I go to church every Sunday. Mm-hmm. I am someone who gets up in the morning and I try to read a scripture, have a little quiet time before I go to do my workout or whatever I'm going to do in the morning before I go to work. So that kind of helps me kind of level set for the rest of the day. I love to garden. I am a fanatic. I started growing watermelons last year, so I tried to top the 15 that I grew last season.
Okay, cool.
This season, which I did by one.
Okay, 16 record, pretty good.
But those are my outlets. Doing my gardening.
I love that. That's a great one.
And then cooking. I like to take the things that I, grew and then try to do recipes with them. I do have I did a recipe book during the pandemic.
Cool. I did not know that. Yeah. That's really amazing.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. All you have to do is look my name up.
Okay, everybody, go get it.
And it's not a cookbook. It is a recipe book. Everything that's in there, you can take it and tweak it to your own liking. I'm not trying to teach anybody's grandmother or mother how to cook. Not doing that.
I don't want to enter that world whatsoever, no. But it's nice to have, it's almost that kind of, then we can learn what you cook at home or what you cook for your family, and then we can alter it for our own.
Exactly.
And that's really perfect. That's fun.
Well,
and was that what made you want to do that?
Well, I think it was a combination of when a lot of times we would have things at the office where I would bring dishes in and people would say, oh, this is so good, Doc. Can you make this, or can I have your recipe? And so I had a stack of all these recipe cards. And then the other thing, when I was in residency, I had a few patients that I would try to get them to substitute ground beef for turkey and reduce their salt. And so I would tell them, bring me in your recipes, we'll exchange, and I will rewrite your recipe as a healthier option for you and substitute.
Oh, great.
And so over the years, I just had these stacks of recipes on index cards that I've kept this whole time.
Cool.
And then just over the years been modifying and making adjustments to them. And somebody said, Doc, why don't you just put this in a book so we all can,
everyone can use it. Yeah.
Put those little scrap index cards away.
It's cleaning up your life while sharing your recipes with the world. No bad happens here. That's wonderful. Yeah, that's really neat. And it's on, you said on Amazon, correct?
Yes, it's on Amazon.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And are those the same things that sort of keep you motivated in your day, or are there, what keeps you motivated? Similar sort of items with the gardening and such, or are there other items, family or husband or the practice or some sort of the practice, or some part of the practice that keeps you motivated?
I think that when I'm really, really down in the dumps, I take a walk around the location where I'm at. That's our Gary location. I take a walk around and I'll see longtime patients, and they will just have, be so complimentary or just want a big hug because we haven't seen each other in a while. And I think those are the things that kind of help pick me up. Yesterday, I received a message. The name looked familiar, and I wasn't sure, but I said, let me dial. And I called, and it ended up being a patient. She's still a patient, long-time patient, but she wanted me to know that her husband, who was the one that had brought her into the practice, had passed away. He had been a part of our practice since we were in the trailer.
Okay.
He did run into some health conditions, and we had to send him away to specialty care.
Sure.
But she, wanted to say how much he loved Community Health Net, and how she was continuing there as a patient. And she says, whenever I come there, I'm tempted to ask for you, but I don't know. I said, don't even finish that sentence. I said, when you come in the building, ask for me. If I'm here, I will come down and see you.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so I think it's things like that to help keep me motivated and know that we are making a difference.
Absolutely.
In the lives of people, and not just individuals, but in their entire families.
Yeah, you've got the whole family coming to you, and that's really magic. And for her to just know that you would want that information, right? I think no, I think if I died tomorrow, I don't know that I'd have anyone tell my doc. But that just means that they know you care. Yes. And that's huge. That's really big. And
we do care. And I'm not saying that other healthcare providers don't, but it's just, it feels a little different.
Yeah.
It feels a little different.
Yeah, you guys really give it your all. And like I said, you've got your husband. He works there as well, correct?
No, my husband is in private practice.
Okay, so he's in private. Got it.
Yeah, he's in private practice.
Okay, good.
He enjoys that, and I enjoy him doing that.
That's your guys' thing. Yeah, that's perfect. You guys each have your own. So outside of the practice, tell us what some of your passions are. And I think we touched on a couple already and how they contribute to your well-being or balance with that gardening and such. Are there other passions or hobbies that you have?
I like to advocate for services, so I'm on a lot of committees.
Okay.
I've kind of reduced some of that on a few boards and committees. I've been invited to speak to the Indiana state legislator, meeting with, people to advocate for services, for care, for funding, and different things like that. So those are some of the other things that I'm passionate about, making sure that, other people's voices can be heard. And if I have to use my voice to do that, then I will.
Well said. Who have been the most influential people, hopefully women, in your life that have really impacted you? Who are those women in your life that have really mentored, impacted, and left a mark on your life in a positive way?
Well, I mentioned Mrs. Springer, my kindergarten teacher.
She's my favorite.
My mom is next. 5 girls.
You're one of 5?
Yes.
Oh my God.
1 of 5. My poor dad, he was just there.
Girl dad.
Yeah, he was just there. Dad, we're going to a sleepover. Can you be the driver?
Yeah, exactly. He's probably like, I'll just be the driver all the time whenever I can be.
Dad, we want to go to the drive-in. Yeah. And my friends want to go too. Can you bring the station wagon out? So I had my mom, Mrs. Springer, my aunt Lillian Young. She recently passed. She lived to be 100. She was born in 1922, and she made it to February of 2023.
Really? How incredible.
Thank you. She was the former director of the Lake County, Jasper, Porter, Newton, all of the welfare departments for 5 counties.
Really?
Yeah, she was there for over 40 years. Wow. And so she was a role model. It's so funny when I started residency, and I'd go down to the emergency room, and there'd be a lot of paperwork around, and I would see her name stamped on things, and I'm like, what does this mean? And they said, oh, this child is a ward of the state, and that's the director's name for Lake, Porter, Jasper, Newton County.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And then finally people figured it out.
They're like, we're putting all this together now.
Dr. Seabrook, is this your auntie?
Yes, it is.
So she was a big role model for me as well. She was her husband died at a young age, so she had a young daughter. It was just her and her daughter. And so that's actually how my family came to Gary, because it was my mom, my dad, and I living in Charleston with the rest of the relatives. And when he passed away, my grandmother, my father's mother, asked him to come up here, go to the funeral, represent the family and things like that. He came up here. He didn't want her to be here by herself without a husband, and with a small child. So then he sent for my mom and I, and we've been here ever since. And so, we came here because of her and the situation that she was in. So our family was very close because it was just her and her daughter. My cousin, Maxine, she went to Tuskegee, so that's how I knew about Tuskegee. Okay. I wouldn't have known about Tuskegee had I not had family that went there.
Perfect.
And so then Meharry is on I-65, so as I'm driving back and forth from Gary to Tuskegee, I'm like, Meharry Medical College. Okay, we're going to apply there.
Put it there, yeah, exactly.
And so, I would say my aunt, Mrs. Springer, my aunt Lillian Young, Mrs. Springer, and my mom, and of course, all of my church ladies, because my Girl Scout leader. There's so many people that were so impactful in my life.
That's amazing.
My mom was our church secretary for over 30 years. So that was our second home. We were always at church, so we were out. I was in whatever teen mission group, Girl
not
Guild,
just showing
Girl
up on
Scouts.
Sunday. You're there.
No, we were there.
Yeah.
Literally, we were there. And, you make so many friends, and they may not go to the same elementary or middle school or high school. So you had that context of family too, outside of the friends from your neighborhood and things like that.
It's its own little community in itself.
So our Girl Scout leader, our troop leader, she was very influential with us. She wanted us to be upstanding, strong women of the community, leading for the future. Every year she would make sure she would take us to City Hall and to the mayor's office, and we would get to meet the mayor at the time, whoever was serving in the role. Yes.
We did not do that with Girl Scouts. I feel like you got hooked up with a great leader. How long were you in Girl Scouts?
I am still in Girl Scouts, believe it or not.
This is incredible.
I served as a leader up until the pandemic.
Okay.
And we haven't really reformulated, but I've been in scouting ever since I was 5 years old.
Incredible. Mm-hmm. You said you moved here really young. Do you have a lot of memories from South Carolina? I love Charleston myself, personally. Or have you gotten to go back and spend some time there with family to where you've got this kind of South Carolina or Charleston memory?
More than memories, okay?
Okay.
So school would get out, I don't know, right after Memorial Day, maybe June 2nd or 3rd or something like that. June 5th, we were in Charleston.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And we got picked up 2 days before school would start back.
Okay, that's
so we spent the whole summer without fail.
Okay.
Up until I started my first job, and that probably was at age 12 or 13. And then so my trips there weren't as frequent. But then once I started at Tuskegee and I had my own car, I would go to Charleston.
Okay, that's like 5 hours or something?
Something like that. Yeah. There was a young lady there, my grandmother, who was still in Charleston. She called me and she said, XYZ she lives right down the street from us. And so if you don't want to drive by yourself, ask her to ride with you, or either she can drive. So we would carpool back and forth. And Meharry, same thing. So
that's amazing that you had this great kind of relationship with where you were born, even though you didn't live there the whole time.
The bulk of our family is still there. My parents own property there, so we couldn't make it for the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So in our honor, they sent us pictures from our yard where they had a big blowout party.
Oh, that's cool. And they're probably outside. Yeah, outside enjoying it. Yeah. Like a long sleeve and
the oysters, crabs, all kind of seafood galore that was there.
Food. Yes.
So they had a good time.
Oh, that's fantastic. I like that you have that time there. That's really wonderful. Tell me a little bit about, you mentioned some women in your life that are really impactful. Tell me a little bit about mentorship within your life. Have you been a mentor to others, and do you have some mentors in your life that have been really strong?
So I have had young ladies come up to me and ask if I would be willing to be their mentor. And I don't have any issue with that. And I try to, make as much of my time available as I can. I also find that you can lead by example.
Yes.
So I've had, I also used to, this is going to sound crazy, but I used to work as a substitute teacher for the Gary School District.
Okay.
And I had to take a year off from medical school until I found the scholarships to help pay for medical school. So in that interim, that's what I did. I was a substitute school teacher.
Okay.
One of my assignments was to go to an alternative house where young ladies who were pregnant were there, because at that time you weren't allowed to be in school if you were showing pregnancy. And so I would go get all their homework assignments, help them with their work, report it all back to their teachers, make sure that their homework was completed so we can keep their grades up so they can graduate on time.
That's fantastic.
And so I did this for a year. And one of the young ladies who had her child, she asked me to be the child's godmother. And I said, sure, no problem. We are still friends to this day.
I love this story.
Every holiday, if we're not together, we find a way, they're from Gary, to find a way to get together. We've gone on family vacations. My goddaughter has, been with us, family trips and things like that, even before I had my kids.
Really?
She was in my wedding. And so the young lady, her mom, over the years has always shared with me, she said, I never said anything to you, but I looked up to you and I, wanted to emulate the things that you were doing. Wow. And so sometimes you're a mentor without knowing that you're being a mentor. So that's why I answer that question like that.
I completely agree. And I feel I love that you have actually been asked. And I think we've talked about mentorship obviously on this podcast before. And one of the things I don't know if we've discussed, but it's definitely a thought of mine often is we are not taught to ask that. Mm-hmm. Getting a mentor isn't something we learn how to do. And it's a little scary, candidly, because do you ask? How do you ask? It's almost like that, are we boyfriend and girlfriend? It's kind of like that awkward conversation, but in mentorship life. Mm-hmm. And it's a tough one. And I think most people probably feel a little awkward about that because do you know already that I look at you that way or not? Do you have the time? Do you feel bad? And you're going to say yes anyway. And there's all of these, there's so much chance for rejection that you get a little scared.
Right.
But I think most often, and what I've seen through my own experiences and from others, is by example tends to happen most often.
Correct.
I've said it on the podcast before, and I'll probably say it 100 more times. I look at Dr. V from the Urban League as a mentor of mine.
Oh, yes.
That woman has taught me just so much, and never on purpose, or at least not known to me. I'm certain there's a lot of purpose in everything she does. She's just brilliant. But she's taught me a ton about grace. She's taught me a ton about the world and just how the Urban League works, but also just so many things in the community and how to serve the community well and how to present yourself well and how to, speak to a crowd and be who you are and all of these things. And I literally said on a podcast one time, I said, Dr. V, if you're listening, I don't know if you know, but you are my mentor. Sorry if you didn't know. And I think that's why, is because it just kind of happened where we worked together in business. I had her on the podcast. Then I immediately turned on and had her at the annual All About the Girls event because she was just so impactful to me and I knew she'd be impactful to others. And it just kind of built from there. And she really has become that person for me. But it is so natural kind of tertiary way where one day I realized, like, man, this woman has had a big impact on me.
Yes.
And I probably should tell her thank you for that, but also recognize that and probably absorb as much as I can. And I think it sounds like exactly what you're doing is you're out in that community and you're talking to those people and you're influencing them maybe from afar or, not directly, but you are, and you're making that impact. And that's not easy. And it's something that will, I bet, will continue to happen to you. And those people will look at you. I bet there's a handful of folks you don't even know look at you like that. But that's really incredible. Yeah.
It's, we have something else in common because I love Dr. V too. Dr. Allen McCloud. Oh my goodness. She is so, the very first time I heard her was actually she sang.
Oh, I don't know if I've heard sing. You guys, Kimmy?
Oh my goodness. She is a singer.
Oh my gosh, Dr. V, why do I know this? Okay, tell me more.
I was, it wasn't a wedding, it was a funeral, and I was there, and I'm sitting in the back, and she's there, and she's in the choir stand. I said, I wonder what she's going to do. She sang solo. She should have a recorded album. She should have an album. That's how good she sounds.
Oh my gosh.
And so we're on a couple of boards together now, Indiana University advisory, Chancellor's Advisory Board. But I'm just in awe of her.
I am too, and I didn't even know that part. Yeah.
With the Urban League. And then I had the opportunity to hear her speak to a group of high school students, and she is funny and she tells the best stories, but they have, so much meaning because she shares so much of her life in really those stories.
Yep.
And you can tell when she's speaking is coming from the heart. It's not scripted or anything like that.
Yeah, she is absolutely spot on. She's just a lovely person. I did not know about the singing. I'm making that happen somehow. Yes. I need to hear this. This is amazing. I don't know anything she's not good at.
I don't either.
I haven't seen it yet today. There's nothing she's not great at. So, Dr. V, we love you. So, personal life, tell us a little bit about your family, your support system, and your kind of life growing up. What does that look like?
So, I graduated from Roosevelt High School. I'm not saying the year. Sorry.
You don't have to. Nope. We don't. Nope.
With over 500 students in our graduating class. That was a big class. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm the only physician. The one other is orthopedic, and he transferred to Westside before graduation. So
we're looking down on that. We don't love that, but we're going to let it slide.
So, and I think there are there are more than a couple of nurses, but as far as physicians, and then we have a nurse midwife.
And that's your high school, correct?
This is high school.
So only physician to come from your high school class. That's incredible, too. That's wonderful. And have you stayed in contact with them?
I go to every family. It is a family. Every reunion. Every reunion, yes. They've asked me to speak a couple of times. So I've been a keynote speaker a couple of times.
Wow. Yeah. I love to stay that connection. I think it's really important to, and maybe not everybody, right? It depends on your high school career and how that looked for you. But I think, and who those humans are, but I think staying connected to that kind of your roots almost, if you will. High school is a big time for a person, and you change and you grow and you go through things so much that it's a big time in your life. And so I think staying connected to those people, and at least some of them, is really a great way to keep humble, maybe, and just connected.
Yeah, I think so. So I have my high school group of close-knit friends. Then I have a couple from college.
Okay.
That we were either on the same dorm floor or roommates at one point in time or the other. And then medical school, people who either were in my class or in the same apartment complex that I stayed in.
Just kind of like adding on to your friend group as you go.
I do. And eventually, if you're my friend long enough, you're in my family. So you can't go away now.
Oh my gosh. I completely agree with that. That's the people that you have at your Thanksgiving table, right? They're not always family by blood, but they are because you have them in your life that close, and it's really important. And I even have tons of friends that have a full family that they go to on Thanksgiving, so they're not at my table, but if I could have them there, I would, right?
Yep.
I think that's the same.
Same.
That's great.
Same. So I have, I told you, 4 sisters. My dad is no longer with us, but my mom is still here. So we have a huge family. The family in Charleston is huge. So whenever we get together, we need a lot of room and a lot of space.
I love
because
a
there's
big
so
family
many of
gathering.
us.
That's amazing.
So we need the yard. We
You
have to have the
have the yard and the weather to have the yard at
Exactly.
Thanksgiving, because we've got to be outside. There's too many people running around. I love that. Like, that's one of my favorite things, especially, and it's been that way, I think, my whole life, but especially probably over the last 10 years, is just being in a room with a bunch of family, blood or not, that are, and just kind of sit back and watch, especially if there's all of the ages, right? We got the little ones
Yes.
in there, and we've got, grandparents in there, and we've got all of these people, and they're just enjoying each other's company.
Yes.
I could just stand back, watch that, and be happy forever. It's just an important time for me that I've gotten, that's gotten more important, I think, over time.
I think it does over time. When you're younger, you really, it doesn't mean as much. And I think over time, as you get older, it does. It means a lot more that you still have, those connections.
Yeah.
And that family that are here still with you.
Yeah.
And I call it baby. After a certain generation, I start calling them the baby cousins. So one of the baby cousins got married, and so my mom and I were able, and my husband. My mom, myself, and my daughter.
Okay.
We were able to go, and they got married in North Carolina. So we went there, and. The town is like this. It's so close so if you drive, I think I stayed in North Carolina, the hotel, but you drive over here and you're in South Carolina.
Yep.
And so they had the memorial table with all of the relatives that had passed on. So I'm glad I didn't see it at first, because I would have been a basket case. I saw it later on after the dancing had started.
Okay.
So I'm dancing and laughing. So when I see it, I'm like, okay. Then I see my grandmother, and I'm like, So I thought that was so sweet to have the, kind of memorial
These are
table.
loved ones lost,
so they
but
can
we're
still enjoy. And they had it facing the dancing floor, so they can see us cutting up.
Yes, exactly where they would want to be.
Exactly.
That's
my
perfect.
grandmother loved to dance. She
really?
Yes, and my mother tells this story all the time. We were at my house I'm getting a little emotional. We were at my house for Thanksgiving. Basement,
Sure.
setup area. And so we started doing the Soul Train, and the music's playing, and it's just about 30 or 40 people down there. We're just having a good time. And my mom looks around, and she's missing her mom, because the great aunt is there. My aunt that passed away, she's on the other side. So like they're at the, table of honor. But grandma's missing. So my mom's walking around. She goes in to the guest bedroom in the basement, and she sees my grandmother. She's like, "What are you doing?" She said, "Oh, I'm practicing my dance I'm going to do going down the line." And she was literally in there doing steps, and she was well into her 80s. She left the room to go and practice so she could come down. And so she wanted to make sure she had her act together before she went down the
She's making an entrance.
Yes.
She's going to dance, the whole thing.
So, no, it's nothing like that. It's nothing like that.
And do you think that those folks, your family and those that are so close with you, do they help you achieve some of that balance in your life, or do they help you achieve some of that kind of working through all of those harder times?
I think it's a combination, and I think we help each other. We have these
Well
big, cousin group chats, and then sometimes we barge in on the mom and dads and uncles group chat. One of us will infiltrate. They're
coming to say,
what are they planning? Can we sneak into their, whatever vacation trip, whatever they're planning?
We're showing up. Don't tell them.
And so I think it's that balance that we kind of support each other, and we have these groups because it's like 5 or 6 groups, and it's like ages, and age blocks. But it's so funny how we all get together because we're sister and brothers' kids. And it's almost like we're sisters and brothers.
Oh, I love that. I had cousins like that when we were younger. We're not as close now. So I like that you've been that way and continue to be that way, because they are. Cousins are like siblings if you make them that way. And I think we've got a woman that works here, our tech, because even our tech person here is female. We don't have we have, I think, 3 men that work here, 2 or 3 men that work here on the core full-time team. One of the women that works here and the tech team is Macedonian, and she and her cousins are so, and she's explained that it is a big part of their culture that they all stay so close, but her cousins and her are all so close. And she explains, she's like, there's so many of us, there's tons of cousins, but we all stay close. She'll complain. Sometimes she'll come into work. She's like, I'm really tired. My cousin wouldn't go home. And it's just so cool to see that, because it is, I just love it. And I do love that connection, and to watch it from the outside looking in, and to have some of those connections myself. So that's fantastic. So if you think about cousin Janet, Dr. Seabrook, wife, mother, you have to be all of these Janets, if you will, so many different roles with your career and your family and your hobbies and your passions. How do you sort of stay true to yourself while juggling all of those?
That's a hard question.
I know,
I'm
it's a
not
little
sure
tough.
how to answer that. I think that for me, it's making sure that I'm doing some self-care without feeling too guilty about it. Even just going to get a pedicure, I'm like, oh, I could be doing a load of laundry, do I really? Yeah. And I think that, sometimes pushing some of that out of my head, making time for myself.
Doing it anyway.
Yeah. But
That's really
I have to
important.
literally talk myself into doing things for myself.
Yep.
Because I think about so many other things that I have on my plate that need to be done.
And as women, I think we kill all of our self-care first.
Yes.
It's the same thing. It's marketing and a business plan. It's the first thing killed. I think it's the same here. Is women just say self-care gone first, because I'll take care of me later.
Right.
I think, especially if you have children, I think that goes even more. I don't have any children, but I think it's just, you're always trying to serve others. It's sort of in a lot of our natures. And so you end up last on the list. Mm-hmm. But I believe everything we hear over and over and over again on, you are your best when you handle yourself, or, on the airplane, the air mask, you got to put yours on first sort of mentality. But it's easier said than done.
It is, but what I've had to do is make myself do the things that I'm talking to other people about. If you're telling people to practice self-care, then I have to do that same
As a doctor,
thing.
you're probably saying that all the time. Hey, get plenty of sleep. Take care of yourself. Get that massage. Get that rest. Get that meditation, yoga, whatever you're doing to bring yourself in balance. But yeah, you got to do it too.
Yes, we have to.
It's so hard. And what advice would you give to other women who are potentially struggling to either find the balance, or maybe they feel like they're falling behind, whether it be in their professional lives or their personal lives? And I think those go in balance, right? Or out of balance always. So if they feel really good in their career, oftentimes they don't feel like maybe they're serving their family or their friends enough, and vice versa. So how do you have advice for those women?
The first thing I would say is don't beat yourself up.
Be nice to yourself.
Be nice to yourself. Also, I think that people should consider, if your thing is not talking to your family about things like that, maybe it's finding someone else that you can have those conversations with. Maybe a counselor or a therapist where you can express those things without judgment in sort of a neutral atmosphere. And things are so convenient now. You can go, online, mobile, and, get a counselor or therapist and, maybe share those things that you may not want to put out in a public atmosphere or family, atmosphere. But I think that it's important to first not beat yourself up.
That's the best advice ever. I completely agree with that. We discussed that a little bit in office. Cammie's over there shaking her head because she knows she's a very strong mentor for me, as far as there's so many things that she does well that we're making fun faces at each other too. But she just does, and she'll say that, like, okay, well, first, don't be so mean to yourself. And second, here's my perspective. And I think those things help so much, because you need people in your life, friends like Cammie, that will give you their perspective that sometimes is so helpful. And being nice to yourself is oftentimes her advice to me. And then you're right. But I do give the same advice to my friends, but I don't take it myself very well. And so when I hear it from someone else, I'm just going to take it a little bit more seriously, even if it's about me, because it's coming from someone that I trust. And oftentimes we get in our own heads and don't trust ourselves. And so let's hear it from those other folks so that they can help.
No,
great.
I definitely agree.
So what's one piece of advice you would give to your younger self if you could go back in time? So if you're talking to any age, 18-year-old, 10-year-old, 5-year-old, any advice you'd give to a younger you?
That's another difficult question. Probably to focus more, and this is going to sound crazy. I would have had more research into my MD, because when I got accepted to Meharry and was on campus, I found out that they had an MD, MPH, Master of Public Health.
Oh, okay.
And so when I went to the admissions office, and they said, unfortunately, you accepted the letter to the MD program, and we only accept 6 students in the MD, MPH program. Okay. And so I think if I were to go back and have a conversation with my younger self, do more research, because you know you wanted to have a master's in public health, because I always, at one point in time, this was before the first black Surgeon General, I wanted to be the Surgeon General of the United States. Then I wanted to be the first
That's incredible.
female.
You're like, this is happening, world. Listen to me.
And so that I beat myself up a lot about that.
Because it was just like almost like a paperwork error.
That I didn't realize that this program was available at Meharry. And so, nevertheless, I enrolled in a Master's in Public Health program last year at Indiana University.
You just can't stop. I love it so much. This is so great. This is so great.
I think if I had to give my younger self advice, do research on Meharry before you just go applying. You knew you wanted to be the Surgeon General. You knew that.
Dang it, we were so close. I love that. Gosh, your goals are so grand, and I love them because you do them. I mean, for the most part, and maybe you didn't become Surgeon General, but you could be. And you went back and figured that out, right? And you're health commissioner, so I think that's similarly incredible and serves in a similar way, to my understanding. So, and let's touch on that a little bit. City of Gary Health Commissioner.
Yes.
Tell me, and anyone else that's like me that doesn't necessarily know what that means, what does that mean for us, and especially probably City of Gary community?
Okay. So I think people understand more about county health departments.
Yes.
So Lake County, which Gary is a part of, does have a county health department. So we do have a county health department that we can go to. So cities like Gary and East Chicago and Hammond at one point in time had health departments. Mm-hmm. Hammond decided to close their health department. One of the reasons why the city of Gary, and I can't speak for East Chicago, has a health department is more for convenience for clients who are not able to get to Lake County to get those services. And so public health departments are for the public health and education to prevent the spread of communicable diseases, to educate people about communicable diseases, including influenza, COVID, and those things that the vaccines protect us from. Okay. Also making sure that women and children receive the health care services they need to reduce infant and maternal mortality in the community. So people really don't understand the breadth and depth of what public health departments do. You're able to get your birth and death certificate through the Gary Health Department, but you're also able to get vaccinated for those back-to-school vaccines that you may need. But the role of public health departments, including Gary's health department, is to protect the public from diseases that could spread throughout the community. And by doing that, and so doing that, we need to make sure that we're working in conjunction with the school districts to make sure that the students are vaccinated so that diseases like measles and mumps aren't running rampant through the school district.
Keep them at bay as they have been.
Because once that happens and then students are out of school, that's going to lead to maybe lag time and not graduating on time, loss of, maybe a grade if they're not able to go to the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th grade because they had to miss a certain time frame because they had a communicable disease. So it's very important. And I think that people need to understand that the health department does a lot more than birth and death certificates. We're trying to make sure that the community stays safe, and so people are able to get up and go to work.
Yeah.
The students are able to go to school. So one of the things that we have worked very hard to do is, let me talk about the pillars of health. And I talked about education and reducing the spread of disease. In most public health departments, people really don't think about behavioral health. So one of the things that we're doing under the mayor's administration and with his permission and approval is standing up a new department within the public health department of Gary. We're starting a behavioral health department. And what we want to do is be able to provide resources, those wraparound services to patients that may be suffering with behavioral or mental health illness, and that they need partner with people in the community and organizations in the community that we can quickly get to them into those resources. So that's one of the goals. While I am the health commissioner for the city of Gary, the other is to reduce infant and maternal mortality in the community. So we have several projects under our
We're
wing.
very high, I think, in the state of Indiana.
We are.
The death rate. It's,
Yes.
it's pretty high for
It
infants
is.
and moms.
It is. And so we're working very hard to do what we can, at least in Gary, to help reduce those numbers. And then one of the other things, we received some funding for opioids. And so we're trying to set up some different programs that would help. One of the things is we've ordered Narcan dispensers.
Great.
And we're waiting for them to come. Hopefully they'll be in before the end of the year, and we'll be able to we ordered 4, but we're going to put 3 out in areas that we believe people will utilize them. And that will help to reduce some of the overdose in the community.
That's fantastic. Well done.
Well, thank you.
What a great, just another kind of thing in your day that you're working on. It probably feels like that at least sometimes, but it is making, I'm certain, a very big impact with all of those things said.
You know, there are staff at the health department that are doing the work. And I'm just there as a guide, as a mentor, as a leader to help them put those things in place. To talk to people and to advocate for these services, to be that kind of in between that helps them, the health department, actual workers, be able to provide those services that they want to do. They want to be able to do it. And I want to help them be able to do it.
Love that. So what's next for you, both personally and professionally? What do you have on the horizon in 2025?
I want to create, you said personally, and I went back to work. My brain went back to work. The Gary Health Department has, to my knowledge, we've never had an annual report. And so I want to put together an annual report as early as 25 as I can to present to the mayor, to show the work for 2024 that has been done, and the work that we're going to do in 2025. So that's one of my goals.
Great.
On the work side. And with the Community Health Net, I am looking for an HR director. So I have 2 great candidates, and I need to make a decision in the next couple of weeks so I can notify them, and then I can put all of this HR work that I've been doing, I can take that hat off and put it on them.
That'll be a lovely hat to remove, I'm sure.
So that's a goal.
Oh, that's going to be great for you.
And then personal-wise, I think for me into 2025 is to take a little bit more time for myself, as much as I can, that won't take away from either Community Health Net or the health department and the work that's being done at both of those organizations.
Just a little more time for you.
Just a little bit.
That's good. Mm-hmm. You need it. And before we get to, just a couple questions before we get to our quick response, we're still doing our speed round. Don't worry, 2025 is no different. Just a couple fun questions. What brings you the most joy in your life right now?
My children and their successes, and that they're able to take care of themselves. It's a wonderful thing, you know.
Like you said, you love having them at home because you can see them take care of themselves, but now you know they're doing it. You raised them right, so I'm sure they are. That's great.
So my children are so funny, especially my daughter. She's like, Mom, because this is a real job now. She has to get up and go to work. And I said, yes, this is adulting. This is what adulting is. You get up, you go to work, you come home, you go to sleep, you get up and you do the same thing the next day. You pay bills.
And you have to. They get really mad if you don't.
So she started her job in June, late June. And so she bought her first couch. She was able to throw away the college medical school apartment couch. She was able to. Yes. How did you know it's a futon? Yes.
It always is. So was mine. I wasn't in medical school. I just always, everyone has a futon as their first couch, I feel like.
She bought her first real couch. It was delivered over the weekend. So Sunday morning, my husband and I wake up to pictures in the group chat of her first real couch that she put together by herself. Yeah. And we were like, why didn't you call us? We would have helped. And she said, Mom, it took me 3 hours. And I'm like, little girl, why didn't you call? And we could have come over after church. But she was like, I was so excited. I just wanted to do it myself. I wanted to get up.
And that independence is probably fun to see too, where not only are they independent, but they want to be, and they want to do it on their own. And it's just a great sign of what you did. You raised them well.
And so I think that just seeing them and what they're doing and, making strides for themselves and achievements for themselves, that makes me feel good about myself.
Great answer. Mm-hmm. And if you could describe yourself in 3 words, what would they be?
Kind, someone who perseveres, faithful.
Well done. That was perfect. All right, now on to the tough part. We've got a little quick response questions. So as everybody knows, no different rules in the new year. This is 5 seconds to answer.
Oh my God.
Or we get buzzed. So I will kick these off. And I believe you're the first one to have these. So all new, all fun. All right. If you could only eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Tacos.
Oh, well said. What's your spirit animal?
A horse.
We're coming back to that later. If you could swap lives with any fictional character, who would it be?
I'm going to get buzzed on that. I don't know. Buzz.
It's okay. What's your favorite smell in the world?
Cinnamon.
Ooh, good one. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
What's your most used emoji?
The crying, laughy face.
Yes, that's a good sign.
No. Praying hands.
Oh, I like that one too.
That goes before the crying.
Okay, that one. Are they one than the other?
It's like, help me, Jesus.
And thank you. Here we go, world. Yeah. What's one talent you wish that you had?
Playing more instruments.
Oh, well said. What is your guilty pleasure TV show?
Anything thriller, Netflix.
Okay. If you could instantly master any instrument, what would it be?
Piano.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
That was fast. She knows. If you could have dinner with any person, dead or alive, who would they be?
Julia Child.
Ooh, good one. What's the weirdest thing in your fridge right now? Oh, nothing weird in your fridge?
No.
I was trying to think of mine, and I was like, the only thing I have right now in my fridge that's maybe weird is non-alcoholic beer, which some people think is weird. Oh, or I have eye patches that I bought that need refrigeration because they have like real fruit in them, and they've been in my fridge, and I keep looking at them going, I need to use those. Do I? And then I'm like, wait, do they expire? I don't know how that works here. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess you normally don't have a ton of weird stuff in your fridge. If you were a superhero, what would your superpower be?
To finish projects quickly.
Speed. We're going.
Yes.
What's the last thing that you Googled?
Zillow.
All right. Yeah, that's fair. And what is one word your best friend would use to describe you?
Funny.
Yeah, okay. You did it. That was all of them. She said, funny, question mark, I think. I was interested by the horse comment. That's a really interesting answer. I really like it, but I wouldn't have expected it. What do you like horses?
I love
Is it
horses.
just the kind of elegance they have, or?
I just feel such like a kindred spirit with the horses when I'm with them. My family actually got me some riding lessons because they know how I am about horses.
You really like horses.
I like
okay.
horses. And I remember very clearly, even though I was like 3 or 4 years old, the summer that we were with in Charleston, my grandfather was still alive, and I'd been in Gary for a couple of years, and so this was a summer coming back. He's like, I'll buy you a pony if you stay. And I turned to my parents, I was like, see ya, bye. Because we always got to, ride the horses when we were there. Because both my parents grew up on these huge, animal farms. They had a lot of farmland, and they had horses, they had cattle. So it's like, I love horses.
And they're so like strong, graceful, beautiful, all of those things in one, which is hard to find.
And I think that horses understand us, especially if you love them. I believe they kind of become like a kindred spirit with whoever is taking care of them.
I've never been around horses that much. I've only rode a horse once, I believe. And I've always just, I think growing up, my dad was petrified of horses, which is such a strange thing. Even like we'd go to the 4-H fair and he'd be like, stay away from the horses, they'll kick you. Like you're not even by the legs, but they're just stay away, they'll kick you. And so I just got this big kind of grandiose idea of them. And then my sister took me riding. She rides a lot now as we're older, and she took me riding, and I thought, man, they feel that with a horse, you feel that gracefulness, but that power at the same time. And it's a really cool thing for an animal to have those both. And I could even sense in that first moment around a horse, they pick you up. They pick up what you're putting out in the world.
They do.
And so I was just really working on just be calm, nice, Jenny. That's normal me anyway. Don't be nervous. And it went really well. And I had a great time. So I do. That's a cool answer. I like it a lot.
Thank you.
And what do you hope that other women take away from hearing the story today?
That they'll think about what their passion is, what they want to do, what their dreams are. Because think about it, once your kids don't really need you anymore, you need to make sure that you have something there.
Yeah.
And I think that find out what that passion is early on, and put a path in place, even if you aren't able to do it now, that you can get on that path, on that journey, as things open up for you and give you that time to be able to do it.
I love that. Well, thank you. Is there anything else before we head out that I haven't mentioned that you wanted to bring up today?
I crochet, and I wish I could finish a project.
I felt like a guilty pleasure. Cammie says agreed. She's like, I don't want to tell anybody this, but I'm going to put it out there in the world. That's fun. So, but you don't finish.
I have finished items when my children were little. I made things for them.
Sure.
But I've started projects for myself, and I can't seem to ever finish them. So I have bags of halfway completed, purses with no handle. Vest with the front and the back is not finished yet. Sweater with one sleeve.
I love this. Okay, this is so fun to know about people. Okay, well, in the future, we'll come back. We'll see how those projects are going.
Oh, please help me.
If anyone has advice on how to get her to a completed one, please pass it along. We'll definitely take the input. Well, Dr. Seabrook, this has been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for the time, the input, your just educating us today, and all the information you shared. You are a very real, genuine person and so fun. So thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much.
All right, guys, we'll see you next month at the newest episode of All About the Girls, the podcast. Join us. Check out Dr. Seabrook. She's got website. She's got social media across the board, so you can find her very easily by quick Google. And connect with her, follow the pod, rate and review us if you can, and we'll see you next month. Take care.